running this. You want to do it, Warren, or you want me to?
I think you are, Kathy.
Okay, why are you?
No, I think you're running it today.
Why are your lips not moving?
Well, they're moving.
Kind of, not really. So, all right, who are we missing? Everybody except the three of us. Marty,
Catherine, and Nancy.
Fred, and
Fred's here. Yeah.
Are you there, Fred?
Yeah, see that little town of Rhinebeck logo?
But I don't hear him or see him. Okay, well, there are a few things to report. So hi, Fred. Are you going to miss us when you're gone?
Of course.
I thought so. I'm having a shading problem. I'm trying to figure out how to block out the sun at a different slant this time of day.
Go back to daylight savings time.
Yeah, we could do that for sure. Okay, Marty, yeah. We're missing Marty and
Nancy.
And Catherine.
Catherine's trying to connect now. Yeah.
There
Hello,
she
Catherine.
is.
Yeah.
Hi, Catherine.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
So we'll wait a few minutes for Marty. Thanks for coming, you guys. We appreciate it. Me and Warren do.
We have a quorum. We could discuss minutes, right?
You want to? Shall I call the meeting to order because we do have a quorum?
Yeah, why don't you do that?
Why don't I do that? So said, I'm calling the meeting to order because we do have a quorum. Sebastian did share minutes from the last meeting in September. Are there any comments, amendments, or may we as a quorum pass those minutes? Comments, amendments? No?
No.
I have a question actually under item C, the broader questions about HAPAC. And it looks like we had a discussion. Item B, there was no sense of delegated authority from the applicant or the applicant's team. I don't really remember that discussion, but do we expect applicants or their representatives to delegate authority to us? I think that was
yeah, no, I think that actually is an error. So maybe we ask that that particular phrase be eliminated, because today and previously we don't have that kind of authority as a committee. And so why don't we request Sebastian on his last meetings production to correct that and take it out. Is there anything else, guys, that you would like to see removed or amended or? No?
No, I agree with Warren. I thought that was kind of confusing, that particular
right.
statement.
All right, I'm going to ask him to remove it and resubmit the minutes as corrected. This will be both Fred's last meeting as well as Sebastian's last meeting. Can we have an approval of the minutes with the correction and amendment before I go on?
I can probably do December.
Say what?
I can probably do December. I can host the meeting for December.
Okay, Fred, you're a good sport. Thank you.
If you find another Sebastian, Sebastian could have run the meetings for you, but since he's resigning, if you find another Sebastian, I'll train them.
Well, you know, Fred, what the town has asked Alan Shear to do is to help to find someone who's as competent and talented as you are. And he apparently has a line on someone who can do Zoom meetings within which a transcript is contained, so that when the meeting is recorded, a transcript is also produced.
We do that already. It's already done. That it already happens.
All right. So why have we been taking minutes?
Who? Why?
Yeah. Why have we asked someone to take minutes?
Oh, because a transcript is a stream of consciousness. It's not organized. It's because it's not in the format of a proper set of minutes for a committee.
All right.
The transcript is simply Fred said this, then Kathy said this, then Warren said this, then Ann said this, then Catherine said this, then Marty said this. And that's all it is. It's just the verbal, it's a written out. It's not it doesn't create an organized set of minutes from a conversation. It can't, nothing can do that but another human right now.
But Fred, from your understanding of this situation, does it suffice together with recording to preclude someone having to organize it into written minutes or
no?
not?
Not at all. You can't, no. No.
All right.
No, you've got to continue to, you need a secretary or someone who's a secretary of multiple boards. You need somebody to help you with that, or you have to do it yourself.
All right. Okay, well, thank you for that. We'll go back to the source and explain
if Alan finds somebody to help with Zoom meetings in the meantime, well, then I'll help train that person if necessary as well. It doesn't matter. I just assume not keep doing this, but for your one committee, if you need me to fill in for a couple more months, that's not a problem.
Thank you so much, Fred. And I think we would at least ask you for December and not try to take too much advantage of you, because you've been great for us. And we thank you very much. Okay, so I think maybe I'm going to ask them to be in touch with you with regard to both minutes and the training of somebody to do a Zoom call for the.
They do not need to get in touch with me for minutes. I will not have anything to do with you.
No, I know that. I mean,
yeah, okay.
Just for the Zoom information, I'll tell them what you said about the minutes. Okay. Did I get approval for the minutes?
No, I was going to motion approval.
Thank you.
You asked for a motion, I offer a motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So, moving on to, by the way, if it wasn't clear, Fred has been kind enough to stay with us through the process of these Zoom meetings, and we're intensely grateful to him. And we're going to miss him. And we thank him very, very much for what he has done for us and what he'll do to get us moving in the right direction with the next person. So I want to be sure I say that. All right, and on to current referrals for the planning from the planning board. I may ask Warren to go over this with you, but Soho House has raised its head with regard to Grassmere again, and they intend to, per the request of the building department, move ahead with the application and permitting that was awarded now some 6 years ago. Warren, I think, could talk about it more so than I can. This particular application and permit is for 41 rooms, some of which are in the manor house, some of which will be contained within echo cabins on the property. And on Friday morning at 9 o'clock, Michael Trimble had suggested to the Soho House representatives that they meet with members of the HAPAC committee for insight and perspective with regard to historic architecture, archaeology, and the other things with regard to expertise that the committee represents. And so that's why the meeting at 9 o'clock on Friday morning. Warren, maybe you could talk a little bit about how long they have, this permit has been in the process. And were you on the planning board at the time it was approved?
No, I really, actually, I can't offer a lot of insight. I know they've been there for a very long time, being Grassmere, not Soho House. And it's been through a number of different iterations. And I want to say maybe they've had 3 different phases of approvals. But the challenge has been that every time, Jonathan Mensch has sort of spearheaded this, every time they sort of have a concept, they have to find a developer that's going to buy into the concept and put in the funds and actually take it forward to the next step. And each time they've got a development team on board, the developer wants to make changes to suit their business model or their own tastes and preferences. And that's very common, unfortunately, with these kinds of projects and developers, that anyone bringing money in wants to have some say in the final outcome, whether for better or worse. So that's part of the problem. And of course, it's dragged on through economics ups and downs, and most recently the pandemic. But it does seem that this group, Soho House, which have been interested and partially involved for the better part of 2 years, went away, came back again, seemed serious and are moving forward. And I believe one reason that they want to come talk to us is not only to get some guidance on what to do with the very expensive and extensive renovation of the Manor House, which is important, but I also saw somewhere in a communication, maybe within the last couple of days, that, surprise, surprise, they want to amend the approval and do something a little differently. And that's what generally would trigger a re-review by the planning board. They don't need to do a new application, but anytime they substantially make a change, they amend the application, and that would give the planning board certainly the opportunity to refer it back to us. So one of the questions that I think has been raised is, well, are we just going to limit our review to the Manor House or to things they specifically ask us about, or are we going to want to weigh in on other aspects of the project? This is, it's a landmark property. It's within the Hudson River Landmark District. And there are many reasons why I think, the planning board would be interested in having us review more than bits and pieces of it. But I think we'll probably learn more about that at the site visit on Friday morning and sort of see where it goes from there.
Right. I haven't seen that sort of hint at amending the permit under which they believe they will work, but I do know that they have spent time, and I'm sorry she's not on the call because, it would be helpful to hear from her, that they have spent time with Nancy Kelly and time with the Historical Society. Mm-hmm. And that they are, in particular, according to Michael Trimble, interested in the historic aspects of the Manor House, the architecture, the history of it, and that they are looking to hear from a committee together with, I'm assuming, more from Nancy Kelly and whatever, with regard to what they're dealing with. I do know, according to, I think, Melody, that the building is in bad shape, that it has deteriorated radically over the years, that they have hired, for better or for worse, Robert Murray to be their engineer with regard to the project. And more importantly, that they are on their own now. They have reached an agreement with Jonathan Mensch and the Mensch family to take the project on in its entirety and solely with them. They have a different lawyer, they have a different designer, and now they have Robert Murray. So it sounded to me, from what Michael described, as a bit of a fresher start, but maybe not. Maybe you've heard something I haven't heard. And then that whole agenda of their business model that caused so much, furor, the idea of a membership club that locals couldn't be a part of and all that. I have no idea how likely that is to, I'm assuming it will continue, but in what framework and format, I don't know. So it should be an interesting meeting at 9 o'clock in the rain on Friday. And can you two come? You and Catherine, can you guys both come? Great. Yep. I think this is a particular.
I had a question. I remember, months ago, Gretchen sent us a link to the Grassmere project, and I know she switched her files around, so some of the old links don't work. Are we going to get a link so that we can look and see what's been done in the past? I did asked Melody about archaeology, and she said there had been a report done at some point, but I do not recall seeing a report when I looked at the material that we were provided with before.
Yeah, you're quite right. There wasn't an archaeology report, and more importantly, whatever we have been given in the interim no longer in a way applies to what they intend to do under the permits issued 6+ years ago. And so I've asked for them to share with us, to the extent that they have records, what are they operating under, and when was it awarded, and how different, if anything, is it? And I'm quite certain that they want to operate under that phase 1 permitting process, because they can begin right away. They don't need new, and that's something that's important to point out. They don't need new approvals. They don't need basically much of anything. And so listening to our committee, or even listening to Melody, whom technically they don't have to listen to, she is asked to be part of the dialogue, the discussion, and the meetings, but they're already past the planning board however many years, 6 years ago.
Do you know if any archaeology was done originally?
I don't know. I have no idea. And I've asked for copies of everything so we know what we're dealing with before we get there on Friday. And also, I don't know where the intended echo cabin constructions were going to be and what did that mean in terms of archaeology, all of that. So I've asked for it, and hopefully we'll get it before Friday.
Okay.
Isn't there a deadline after you pass the planning board and file you have only 6 months to file with the building department, and then only a year to break ground?
Somebody has been extending it, correct, Warren? They've asked.
It is extendable. Even if they have to go back to the planning board and request another extension, even if it's sort of an extraordinary or unusual extension. They just recently, as you know, put in a driveway from Route 9. Yeah. And that certainly falls under the site work phase of the project. So I believe they've been diligently trying to keep the approvals sort of open and going. And I might be incorrect that there's a request for amendment. It might just be that at this point, it is an amended approval because they went back so many times. But we'll learn more about that, I think, on Friday.
Right. And they have. Sorry.
Is there an address for it? It's, I assume, Mill Road, but obviously we're not supposed to go in through the Route 9 entrance.
Right. No, I'll get an address. I know where it is. I just know what the number is. Yeah.
I know approximately where it is, but I just want to make sure.
Right. Okay. I'll get a formal address for sure. All right. It's an interesting situation. We'll see. As of today, we don't have any other referrals from the planning board. The last meeting was a series of continuing projects. So we don't have anything else. Warren and I went, when Melody was available, to a couple of site visits with her. One was the solar project on Susie's roof, and one was a project on Orchard Street that Warren is involved in. So if you guys would like to see either one of those two in a separate visit, just let one or the other of us know. I think that, I don't know if Warren heard me say this to Melody, but we will see an awful lot of solar, roof-mounted and ground-mounted solar in historic districts. And one of the things I said to Melody is, should this committee be creating a solar policy in historic districts? And her take was no, because everything is different. I'm not sure I completely agree there, but we will see an awful lot more solar projects, as everybody knows, and not the least of which was on Susie's roof. Grinnell. All right. So other than that, our main thing is Grassmere, and then we'll see at the next couple of board meetings what will happen. Any other questions about that?
Kathy, is the rest of the board aware of the meeting we had at Wildercliff with Melody and the owners and the owners?
I think not. I think thank you for bringing that up, and I think they are not. Would you mind describing it in more detail?
Sure. At the planning board approval of the Wildercliff barn project, and also had other elements like the former playhouse and so forth. The approval was worded rather strangely, it seemed. The planning board basically said, we're going to approve your whole project except for what you do with the north end of the carriage house, because it seemed rather unsatisfactory to our committee and to the planning board. And they said, we want you to meet with the HAPAC and kind of work out a resolution that, you know, everybody can live with. So that kind of took away the stick from the applicant. They had the carrot, they don't have a stick, but it did say that we had a follow-up meeting. So we met, we being Kathy and I were there, and Anne, were you there on this follow-up visit? I don't recall.
No, I wasn't.
No. Marty
Melody
was not there, right? But of course, Melody was there, and Mark Graminsky was there, along with the architect and designers for the applicants, Larry Garrick and Jordan Valdina, and then of course the owners were there, Chris and Laura Hines. And the discussion centered on the fact that what they were proposing to do with the horse stall part of the building was basically going to destroy any historical integrity of that. And that rather than remove all the interior finishes, install fire-rated sheetrock, put them back, somehow create a fire-resistant ceiling for what's up above and what they do with the floor, and push the south side out, I guess about 5 feet to actually accommodate a vehicle. This was not historic preservation. And so we argued very strongly that they should either do sort of a totally separate addition, leaving the stable block alone. We'll get back to what they do with the stable block, or even better, an entirely separate garage, which was actually recommended probably on the first visit, and at least more than once. But either the owners or the representatives were kind of tone deaf about that. But once we talked about the damage that would happen to the historic fabric of the stable and the costs to do what they said they wanted to do, it seemed to make eminent sense, even to the owners, that doing a separate standalone garage would make more sense. And that way we don't have to disturb the inside or outside of the stable block. What they do in the stable, they can make it their gym, since we don't want to let them put dormers up in the attic and punch holes in the building there to give them the headroom and light they need. Whether they do that remains to be seen, but the attempt was to preserve a beautiful intact stable block, knowing full well they're not going to use it to stable horses, but we still think it would be nice to preserve it in some more respectful fashion than basically destroying it to make it a garage. So the owners kind of agreed in concept to that, but they have not come back yet with a proposal for this separate standalone garage, either in siting or what it looks like. So I don't know that we're quite done with that, but I think we did feel that was better than letting them destroy the stable, I guess. Not a win for everybody, but better to preserve one of the most intact remaining features of that structure. And that's kind of where we are at the moment.
There also was, in addition to that, back and forth about the playhouse, the little playhouse, which now they want to move to become a gatehouse towards a different end of the property. So there's still some back and forth there also about how that
abandoned that, actually. I thought
did they abandon it finally?
I thought they took that out too. Right.
Yeah.
The last I saw from the archaeological testing was that they were going to move it over closer to the river in another location, and I don't remember that they made it clear what they were going to use it for.
Yeah, I'm not, it could be that I just don't remember, but Warren, I think it's still up for continued discussion, those two sort of critical historical elements.
Right.
But what they are now free to do is site work with regard to tree plantings and other things that they were eager to get done before the season precluded their being able to put in landscaping that they wanted to put in. I know Melody is waiting to hear back from them, having been given this window of opportunity. They have not responded at all with regard to what they would like to do or thinking about doing or whatever. So she's a little, you know, unhappy, if you want a better word, about their dragging their feet on something this important. But at any rate, it's still up in the air, and there are things that they can do and things that they are required to work on. So anything else on that? And we'll keep you posted. Anything else on that? So those are two kind of big referral elements. And for now, there isn't really anything else that I've heard of, which doesn't mean that Rockledge isn't coming. There are a lot coming down the pike. Rockledge in particular is likely to show up in January. And there are other elements there that are particularly problematic and hard fought. There is at the end of Buttonwood, another development project that has issues in it too that are both archaeological, environmental, and less historic. So there are some of these bigger development projects that are of concern either to private owners or for larger development purposes. But
recently there was a woman when I went out to the transfer station who was collecting signatures on a petition against the Rockledge project.
Right.
So you know that there's some community resistance.
Oh no, they've gotten, the last I heard, 650 signatures on a petition that they developed, which cleverly does not indicate that the neighbors are the ones who are circulating the petition, and do not want to see a condominium development or an historic building adaptive reuse on their road, on their rural roads. So it's a little it's a lot disingenuous, but at any rate, they are doing that. There's something going on about it. Okay, so I think those are the ones that we know the most about. I wish Marty were on the call, because the next element on the, and last thing on the meeting agenda is about organizational protocols, and his in particular deeply held conviction that this committee doesn't have enough authority or proactive philosophies to make the work that we all do for it productive. And he would like to see that changed and go perhaps from a committee, interpreting what he has to say, go from a committee to a board, and to a board with more authority with regard to impact on applications, on what can legally happen. I called Elizabeth Spency today and asked her, now that she has been reelected, and asked her for time to consider what the committee would like to see brought to the table. And she's fine with that. She's happy to talk to us, whether we want to have her, whether we want to develop protocols, propose protocols, and take it to her first and to the board, or whether we want to discuss with her on a more wide-ranging basis. But Marty in particular, as everyone on the committee knows, is not a happy camper. And he would in particular like us to see us be more aggressively, proactively, more aggressive and develop some, as he's talked about at the last couple of meetings, more protocols that allow us to do that, not the least of which is to be a board rather than a committee. So since he's not here to talk about it, I want to just be sure that the continuing dialogue about it is acceptable to those of us who are here, one, and that we recognize that it means probably more work on behalf of this committee than, more work as a board rather than a committee. And so we need to recognize that and be willing at least to consider it before we keep on moving ahead or forward. Do I know how much more? I do not, unless it's with the planning board. Man, that's a lot of work there on that board. And so my guess is that comparable levels of work, if not completely comparable, certainly heavier than what we do now, which is to wait until we are called upon by the planning board. So I just want to be sure with at least the three of you that you're willing at least to entertain more discussion about it before we keep on going.
I think it would work better if we were able to move forward with some of the things Marty has suggested, such as develop a specific intake form with our own requirements or documents that need to be submitted, so we don't have to kind of pull teeth to get these out of applicants. The things we're asking for are generally available online. And there are references, if they're not already on our website, they could be on where to go and get stuff. And frankly, the Historical Society, and not only helping the folks at Grasmere, but also any other applicants that are looking for history on their houses. So there is a lot of material out there, and asking applicants to be a little better prepared about this is perfectly reasonable to do. So I do think the intake form is something that we need to get the town board to adopt, or the planning board to adopt, whatever the protocol is going to be. And just once that's in place, then it's a little easier for the zoning officer, who's the first person that reviews applications for building permit or development, to say, yes, not only do you need to go to the planning board, but you may have to go to the historic preservation committee. So that is an important first step. And I think, again, we're close to being there in terms of the form that Marty's put together based on the stuff we've given him.
All right.
Is this something that would be like the planning board, where there'd be a committee meeting at night and the applicant would have to present, and like a hearing like the planning board hearings are?
It could be.
But not necessarily.
Could be,
right?
but not necessarily.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. For a while, the Conservation Advisory Board met in that formal way. I don't know that they are right now, but that could be lack of members. But I sort of, the unspoken question I hear Catherine asking is if we're going to be obliged to have at least monthly meetings as a board in the evening, because many of us don't really feel we have those evenings available for this.
So I think,
but it's also not understanding, like in other towns, how it's done or how much impact is expected. And I like the idea of preserving everything, but not adding layers and layers of hurdles for people to have to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
I mean, I want to be both sides of advising, but not just dragging things out for people who want to put an addition on their home, or who wish they hadn't bought their home because now they found out there's this whole layer.
Right.
Right. I think, a thing that we had said to the planning board already is please include us or representatives for us in the pre-con meetings with applicants, so that historic properties, historic buildings, historic locations hear from us at the get-go. And I think there's no reason why, when an applicant makes a presentation, we could not, as either a committee or a supplemental board, be there at the same time and get it all out of the way at once. I think that's a good suggestion, Catherine. We can sort of combine the two and have it not mean that they would have to come 2 weeks later the way they have to the Zoning Board of Appeals or whoever else they would have to go to. I think that's a good suggestion, and one I think the planning board would be happy to implement. Don't you think, Warren?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So that might take care of that concern. So the combination of the pre-con meetings together with board membership or committee membership at the planning board presentation, that's kind of twice where they would see input from us and have to deal with everything at the same time. I'm going to suggest that if it's all right with you guys. And then there are some legal issues with regard to board versus committee. There's more responsibility and more authority. And I want to get an outline of that for us to take a look at on a, sort of a parallel basis so that we understand what we might be taking on if we agreed to do that. And so if it's all right with you guys, I think we'll keep on talking to Elizabeth as part of the town board and to the planning board about how we might strengthen our position and our authority, and at the same time get them to listen to what we have to offer, for sure, in archaeology as well as architecture and historic preservation. Does that sound okay? Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So anything else on that before we move on to one last piece of business? Anything else? Warren, anything else?
I don't think so.
All right. So if we schedule a December, under new business, if we schedule a December board meeting, I think, Fred, it's the 13th of December. Am I right? Did you fall asleep?
Nope.
All right.
No, if I fall asleep, then I might not wake up when you stop talking and I have to stop.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that happens a lot, actually. But anyway, I'm thinking the last meeting would be the 13th, which is the second. All right, the December the 13th at 4 o'clock. And
that's good for me.
Is that good for the rest of you guys?
Yeah.
That would. All right, that would be the last meeting of the year. Wow, what a year, huh?
What a year.
Oof. All right. So anything else before we suggest adjournment? Anybody have anything else under new business? I want to say to Catherine and to Ann, thank you for upping your term. We're deeply grateful. I know it's work and I know it's time consuming, so thank you very much. So I'd say that. And Fred, we're going to miss you for sure.
There might be someone better in your future.
I don't know about that, but we'll see. Anyway.
Thank you.
If there's not anything else, may I ask for a motion to adjourn?
Nobody wants to leave.
One of you guys got to do it. You do it, Warren. Somebody make a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
And a second. May I have a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Happy Thanksgiving to you guys.
Thank
you very much for throwing yourselves into the work. We really appreciate it. All right.